So, what are the steady heart at this moment? How these pharmaceutical are produced today? For example, for Vinca alkaloid, the raw material used to produce this molecule are still the plant. Plants, Catharanthus, are mainly cultivated in India, but also in Madagascar. Okay, that's the origin of this plants. But after all the harvested plants, mainly leaf, are migrate, to Europe, where there is two companies, including Pierre Fabre. It is one of the most bigger company that produced vinblastine and vincristine from this raw material. What it is interesting is that, in fact, that they don't extract from the plant directly vinblastine and vincristine, because the concentration of these two molecules are very, very, very low. So it will be needed to have tons and tons and tons of fresh material. But it is not the case with the two precursor, catharanthine and vandoline, that are in a very bigger concentration in the plant. So they extracted both catharanthine and vandoline, and after they have a chemical step. It is what I said to you before, that that it is called a semisynthesis. Here you have all the chemical process that lead to the condensation of catharanthine to vandoline in anhydrovinblastine before to become vinerolbine, which is the vinblastine itself. And after vinerolbine, it is the molecule used for the cancer treatment. So it is a better way, less expensive than to have the purification until the last molecule, and it is what it is used today. It is why one of the program we have developed, for example, in engineering metabolic, is not to produce this molecule in the cell, but to produce the two precursor. In order to give more precursor, to this industry, to produce by their method, the final product. That was interesting too. And but you need to know that this molecule is also in demand at one moment of the year. So there is not enough production to sustain all the demands, over the world. Concerning artemisinin, it's quite also the same. In fact, as only some countries here, shown in red, are really concerned by anti-malarial molecules. Not you see all this part of the world. The blue one are the part of the world where this disease is decreasing. So means that in fact half a part of the world is concerned by malaria. So it's a big disease over the world. And the only place where the artemisia, the natural source of artemisinin is produced, come from China, mainly Vietnam, and also East Africa, including also Madagascar. So you see, it is exactly the same profile as we have observed for Catharanthus, as that there is some, it's what we call tropical plants. They can be produced only in a part of the world, not everywhere. And mainly it's China that have been take the lead, of the production of artemisia. So it's a complex. It is a complex market, for this raw material in particular. For the Taxol, it's exactly the same. We have now already well expressed the idea of the plant that originate the molecule is in danger, Taxus brevifolia or Taxus baccata. And this plant is endangered. So it is now important to develop alternative pathway, to produce this molecule. And you know, obviously, that it is in plant cells now. but it starts to also to be tested in yeast. And for etoposide, I show you that it is one of the most interesting biopharmaceuticals. The plant that are the best to produce naturally this molecule is Podophyllum exandrum. There is also another one, Podophyllum emodi, but they are very rare. They are not cultivated, so you can find them at in their own region, in particular in Himalaya, because they need to be at least at 2,000, 3,500 meters of altitude, to be in the better condition to produce this molecule. Because if you cultivated them in another part, yes, you may have some flower, but the amount of the etoposide will be very, 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 very low. So it is only in this condition that plants are able to produce enough molecule, to be collected, and also to serve to produce some. So you can imagine that at this moment, this plant is really endangered. So we need rapidly to find a way to produce this molecule, etoposide, by other way. And what it is also difficult for the plant is that this molecule is synthesized in the rhizome. So you need to take all the plant, to extract the molecule. So you kill the plant, to take the molecule. So it is a real problem for this one in particular. And as I said you before, the culture is not quite efficient to have enough quantity of this etoposide molecule. Here is a map. Just want to share this with you to show that there is lots of plant species that are currently endangered. You can see here with this scale. Red is more the highest number of plants that are endangered, and you see they are mainly localized in this part of the world. And among these species, most of them are considered as medicinal plants. So this is interesting to know, because means that all the program we can develop aiming to produce some molecules by alternative ways instead of harvesting the plants, or cultivating them, could be a real way to decrease the pressure on these specific wild type plants. So it was a big introduction, but just to show you finally what are the challenges in this area. So one of the alternative way to produce these compounds is biotechnological way named metabolic engineering. So metabolic engineering is now quite developed at the industrial scale, for several applications. What it is, this type of method take part of one branch of the industrial biotechnology named white biotechnology. You know that biotechnology domains can be divided in different domains that are named by a color, depending the organism that is used to produce the biotechnological process. So you have green biotechnology when it concerns plant, red biotechnology when it concerns animals or mammalian cells, for example, and white biotechnology is the biotechnology based on microorganisms such as bacteria, but also yeast can be taken in this type of technology, and these technology are based on the fermented process of these cells. So this industrial biotechnology or white biotechnology is a market that also is increasing every year. This years it's quite about, you see, 10 or it's 100 or 200 US million, but I think it is higher. What it is interesting for me here is to see that the application of this type of industry are obviously as pharmaceutical ingredients. I have discussed this just before, but also in bioenergy. There is a lots of development aiming to produce some molecules to produce some fuel, biofuel, and different other bioenergy. There is now an increasing demand in the cosmetic domains. I will show you some of process that are now well applied in cosmetic industry. But also we see here two other domains, including food and feed additives. There is a lots of way also to have some complementary food that originate from this type of process, and also personal care and all products like to wash your clothes, to wash different things, that they can include several molecules that come from this type of process. And this bioengineering, okay, that's is a way to substitute existing process. For example, as biopharmaceutical, I show you that, okay, now it is in parallel, but in the future, we don't know if it could be completely substituted by this type of process. Normally, they are produced, the workflow are efficient, more efficient than the actual process. If not, it will be not interesting. And also, it is environmentally friendly. This is important because it is what of all our government are expecting of a new process, of a new development. And as I say to you, this engineering process involves a vast range of scientific discipline, biology, biochemistry, microbiology, omic science, bioinformatics, a lot of, and also system biology, and obviously at the end, process engineering. So it means that you can develop this alone. You need to be okay with lots of colleagues from other type of disciplinary, and you may be able to understand what they are saying, and they may be able to understand what you are saying. Okay, so sometimes it takes time, okay, to have a good discussion in which everybody is able to understand the others, which is not so easy every time. And mainly from several years now, we can also include artificial intelligence, which is also another world, okay, with a different concept, which are quite difficult sometimes to integrate, okay, and to well understand, and to see how we can use this to facilitate all the process that are currently developed. So this was, I said you before, based by the unlocking power of multi-omics, and you are now conscious about this, I'm sure. So to summarize here, it's one of my biological systems, such as, for example, yeast cells. Okay, the idea is to modify these cells in order to bioproducts. Okay, some specific bioproducts that can be used for several purposes. What it is interesting on this slide is this part, because we can have two types of strategy. The first one could be this one, named neosynthesis, because in this case, the project is you have to give only sugar as biomass, as sugar, and so you simulate not only the branch you have include in your cell in order to make, for example, a specialized plant metabolite, but also by giving sugar, you stimulate all the primary metabolism of the cells. So you can have a lot of biochemical step before the production of the final product you want to do. This can involve several branches of the metabolism of primary and secondary one. But there is another strategy which can be also very interesting, is that to make not neosynthesis, but what we call bioconversion. Bioconversion is quite simple than neosynthesis because it means that you give to the cells an intermediate of the metabolic pathway, okay, a precursor that it is easily to find, to extract, for example, in another plant. Do you remember I show you that in a metabolic pathway you have three phases. The first one is common to quite every organisms, and they are able to produce a first precursor that it is common to lots of plants. And after there is a second phase that lead to another intermediates that can be more restricted to a family plants or several species, but not all the organisms. And after only you have the third phase that concern production of a specific metabolite of a specific plant species. So you can imagine if you feed your cell here with, for example, the second precursor, it will be faster to enter in the last phase of the metabolic pathway. And also this means that you have just to implement in the cell the last step, okay, of the metabolic pathway. So the number of enzymes and the number of genes that encode this enzyme are lesser. Okay, so it is quite easier to do this type of cell factory by implementing less gene than lots of number of genes. This is why lots of strategies that are currently tried, okay, are bioconversion strategy. And I will show you perhaps tomorrow, yes, surely, the different strategy, for example, to produce vincristine or vanillin, okay, or by neosynthesis or by bioconversion. And you will be able to understand what I mean when I said that this one is more simple than this one, okay? What I say to you is that cosmetic also start to use this type of process to produce. What is quite surprising, because in fact it is a domain in which consumers are now very in demand of natural products. Quite 80 or 19% of the ingredients that you can find in your cosmetic come from chemistry. Okay, not a big part of them are from natural products, but what we observe, it is an increasing proportion of these natural products now in these cosmeticals. And the question of production now is exactly the same as for biopharmaceutical. So this is why, even if the cosmetical companies were completely against using GMO, okay, now they have started to change a little bit their view. In particular, if these GMO are microorganisms that are under control during their growth in bioreactors, and then can lead to biomolecule, that's biocosmeticals, okay, that can be considered as a natural product. Okay, it's a question of meaning. Okay, they have completely changed their meaning, and they have now include in their possible process the production of some specific molecule. Okay, not from plants, but from microorganisms genetically modified. So that was a very nice articles. It was an article of Procter & View. I can encourage you to to take a look of this one, in which the title was clear: why and how to use metabolic engineering in cosmetics. And they discussed this point in a very, very nice way. It was in Nature Biotechnology 2 years ago. So you see, it's quite recent, and means that we are conscious of that. And in particular, in this paper, they name several companies, not all, but some of the companies that make beauty products that have started, to produce some of this compound by biotechnological process based on the fermentation. And some of them are very important. And in particular, we will have some example from Amyris, that it is one of the bigger companies that have developed some biotechnological process to produce several type of molecules, including artemisinin. Okay. So not only biocosmeticals, but also pharmaceuticals. So here, the two type of cell factories we can have today are or plant cell factories, okay, because we know that we are able to create single cells that are able to live alone, okay, and that can be cultivated in a very high volume. But now we can also include several animal cell lines, such as mammalian cells and insect cells that could be also of interest. Mammalian cells are already used for industrial production. Insect cells, not yet. They are always under exploration, okay? There is a lots of nice things that are done in labs, but not for the moment at an industrial scale, because they are very complex to cultivate, more than yeast or even mammalian cells. Okay. So I have put here plant cell, but I could be more extended. Okay. And the second way is obviously microbial. But you can see here that in fact, depending of the cell you choose, you need to know exactly how to feed them. Okay, what type of element you have to give them in order to have a good proliferation and also after a good production. For example, if it is plant cell, yes, you have to give some nutrients. There is no, it's normal, okay? But the question of light is every time very important. This is why we have asked you several questions concerning the type of bioreactor, is it need some light or not, because light can be an obstacle, okay, for increasing the production. But if you can't have any other condition, you need to develop specific, bioreactor, which is the case, for example, with microalgae. Microalgae need to be under light for growing. And what we can observe is now some very, very, very complex and big. It can be like in this room or 10 times this room, okay, for photobioreactors. But it costs most also, because the energy, the light energy, costs a little bit high money. So this is why we need to be sure of which type of organism we want to do. And also, when you have chosen some microbes, such as yeast or bacteria, for example, you have to identify what is the biomass you use to feed them. Okay, it can't be only sugar because it is too expensive. So this is why we use now to see some project, including using end product or byproduct, plant byproduct that come from other industry, because they have lots of lignins, and lignins is with a lot of carbon, and we can try to extract this carbon, okay, to feed after, okay, the cells, such as yeast and bacteria. One of the most developed system is yeast. Yeast, why? For several reasons. They are very interesting. For the first one is that, in fact, while bacteria offer several advantages because we know them very well. They are very easy to manage for fast growth. This is obvious. Okay. But what it is also interesting is that they are not eukaryotic. So means they have only one compartment, the cell, in which all the steps will occur. But now, we have already seen together that for several plant metabolic pathway, we need to have a different step in different organelles. So that is it is impossible to recreate in the bacterial cells. So this is why it was interesting to have another eukaryotic models that could have the quite same advantage as bacteria have. So fast growth, facility to cultivate them, and also tools, genetic tools, molecular tools to be able to transform them easily and quickly. Okay, this is why it's not so easy to introduce new models, because if you want to introduce new models, for example, other yeast, okay, but you need to develop all the tools needed to manage, okay, their genetic transformation and different other type of activities. So it is why it is not so easy to shift, okay, from one model to another one. And actually, on this particular yeast, Saccharomyces cerevisiae, that is the most used, cells for this type of transformation, we have developed all the molecular tools, including CRISPR-Cas9 system I explained you yesterday. So now we are in capacity to manage quite every modification of the genome of these cells, okay, quite easily. There is also two other yeast systems that have been approved and used, okay, for also production of metabolite. It is Pichia pastoris. The particularity of Pichia pastoris compared to Saccharomyces is that they are able to have more biomass, okay, in the same volume. So if you have more cell in the same volume, means you have more product, because in each cell you may have a lots of products. So there is a lots of development, including Pichia pastoris now. And for this yeast, we have also a lots of genetic and molecular tools, okay, to manage their genetic transformation. And one another yeast that it is becoming interesting is Lipolytica, d'accord, because she share with both of two other yeast to have a fast and important growth, okay, and we have started to develop several molecular tools to manage also this yeast. So you see, the list is quite small if you compare this to the high diversity of yeast you can find over the world. So this is important to have also in mind, because there is a lots of laboratories that are trying new species of yeast. But before this yeast will be approved by all the national federation to be used at an industrial level, it take a lot of time. And also we need to have all the information at a genetic level. For example, for Saccharomyces, it's now a long time. We know its genomes because we have sequenced it from 1996. So we know exactly the organization of the genome, how chromosome, how gene, how they are organized on the genome, and so on. And also we have quite identified all the function of the genes. So it is really important. And so we can take advantage in particular of this Saccharomyces. What it is also interesting is that we now have the way to address directly some genes expressed, so the protein, the corresponding protein, to different compartments in the cells because we know how to target, the protein in a particular organelle. So it's quite very interesting. And also, what it is for us quite interesting is that natural yeast have a limited native secondary metabolisms. They have a nice primary one because they need to produce sterol and so on and so on. But they are not able to produce so many important secondary metabolisms. So it means that if you implement a plant one, there is less competition inside the cell for plant metabolite production. So you minimize the interference or competition with any other natural pathway when you introduce the engineered one. What also it's interesting is that you have seen that in the metabolic pathway there is some specific enzymes, in particular the P550, that needs to be anchored on the membrane. And what we observe in Saccharomyces is that this protein in particular may have exactly the same physical and they have the same physical and physiological environment in yeast cell than in mammalian cells. So it means that it could be a plant cell, mammalian and plant cell. That it could be also an advantage when you have to implement several gene encoding for this type of enzyme. For example, it is also the case for UGT, uridine diphosphate glycosyl transferase. It is not so clear in bacteria, for example. It is a real problem to know how this type of protein could be anchored because there is only the cell membrane. Yes, now it is what a bioinformatician have also developed for us. There is a lot of algorithm, or that can predict, that can use this cell as a model, and that can predict, in fact, what will be the best process to implement in these cells, in order to have the best chance of success at the end. So you can make lots of advantage. You can have lots of advantage with these specific cells, and to finish, they have a rapid growth. They are very they are not exigent with food, with nutrients. So you can have simple ones that cost not so much. That it is very important. For example, you can give them directly sugar, but you can give them also ethanol. Ethanol could be less expensive than sugar to produce. They are very easy to be transformed genetically. They can be cultivated also in bioreactor of big volumes, so no problem for the scale up. We know exactly what are their fermented process, so it's quite easy to try to find how to optimize them due to the production you want. And the scale up is quite easy. And when they produce some metabolite, what it is very important, they can produce them in a very high amount. So they have lots of advantage, not so many disadvantage, that put this particular yeast as one of the most used for this type of program. So the concept of cell factory, just for you to have an idea of what is the process that is developed. Firstly, you have obviously to identify not only the plant but the biocompound you want to produce. So the second step that it is obliged, that it is the role of laboratories, for example, is to identify all the biosynthetic step of the pathway. And you are now completely conscious that it is not the more easy step, of the process. It can take some years. This is why we have now these nice tools to help us to accelerate this process. The third step is the construction of the cell factory means to transfer all the gene encoding all the enzyme necessary for the pathway in the genome, okay, of the cell. In this case, we want to have some stable transformation even with the yeast, because in the yeast you can have also stable and transient transformation. You may have some plasmid that could stay inside the cell instead of being integrated in the genome. So you may have both. It can be interesting to make some transient transformation just to have an idea of how it functions, but to finalize a real cell lines for this type of development, we need to integrate the genes inside the nuclear genome of the yeast cell. And obviously now we use quite currently only the CRISPR-Cas9 system, okay, because we take advantage of the particular organization of the genome of the yeast. And after that, the last step, that it is a step where the process go out the labs and start to go at the pilot level and after an industrial level, is the culture in a bioreactor, which needs to have lots of knowledge in bioprocess, like engineer. Okay, it's not only science; it can be mechanical, physical. Okay, systems to optimize the production downstream and upstream, sorry, and downstream too. So different example. I will share here one of some of examples that have been developed by Ameris company. Okay, this is one of the slides I like to show. It's how they are able to produce some yeast cells that when they are feeding when they are fed, sorry, with sugar, they are able to produce several target molecules after having been transformed genetically, okay, to produce this molecule. So here are the number of years that was necessary at the beginning of this type of programs. You see between identification of the molecule and at least building of the strain line, okay, of a yeast, and also to optimize the strain performance. It could take several years, and here it is the long way in the desert, okay, to succeed, okay, from the biosynthetic route for the molecule, and also the pathway activity and the identification of all the molecule, and to transfer them in the cells to optimize after their production. But when you have this yeast cell after, it's not finished, because it's never enough. You need to have a very important amount of production to be efficient and industrial. So it's not milligram by gram of dry material, for example, or fresh material. You need to have several 10, okay, or 100 grams of molecules in yeast to be considered as a good way to produce your molecule. And this could be a very difficult step, because it can be due to cell optimization at a molecular level, but also process optimization to have exactly the best configuration in the two system. So it can take at least 10 years, 10 to 20 years. Now it's faster, but less than 10 years, it's difficult to imagine, okay, from the identification of the molecule you wanted to produce, and the ability to have a good cell line that will be able to transfer at a industrial scale. So you see, it is a very, very long programs. So here are the view of what now they are trying to develop in Ameris, you see that they may have different type of nutrient biomass. Okay, this is what I say to you. They try to optimize the end product of several agronomic industry. Okay, that are not used for food. Alcohol also, different alcohol can be used as also. They use different pathways that are present from the first metabolite, the primary metabolite, but after they may add several other genes in order to make a large set of different type of molecules. They are the first one that were able to produce the artemisinic acid, not artemisinin by itself, but artemisinic acid. But also, I will show you this example just now. Some of terpenes that are very important, such as farnesene, for example. So, farnesene. Farnesene is an example of a natural product that make part of the isoprenoid family. That is a very important molecule because it can help solve global challenges. Okay, and what happens when one molecule is so important is that it can become limited for the production. Okay, to sustain all the type of demands. So this is why this molecule represents a very big market. Okay, over the world, and it is important to see that there is several different applications such as cosmetic oils, polymers, lubricants, surfactant, fuels. Okay, this molecule is used for so many applications. And as I show you here, the market is considerably increasing, and we think that in 2030 it could access about $500 million, okay, which is one of the most bigger market for this type of molecule. What it is interesting is that in fact this molecule was firstly discovered in the plants, apple peels, okay, and they have been completely characterized as a very simple acyclic sesquiterpene, so it's quite nice, okay. It includes chemically 6 stereoisomers belonging to alpha and beta farnesene with four other isomers. But only the beta farnesene is important, okay, for the different application I show you. That could be a problem because, in fact, in the nature, whatever the plant will be able to produce beta farnesene is not always the most important isomer of all farnesenes. So that could be a limitation to use a natural source, plant source, for producing this molecule in particular, because the beta farnesene is extremely low. So farnesene have been also produced by chemical industry, but it is also difficult at the chemical level to separate, okay, or to produce only the beta isomer, and always you have a racemic mix between alpha and beta isomer, and it is quite difficult to separate, and means also that in fact you have lots of part of your production that it is not usable, okay, for your application. So this is why yes. So the conclusion is that acquisition of farnesene from plant extraction or chemical synthesis is always associated with a high cost, low production efficiency, and also with some problem with environmental pollution due to the process that can be suitable. So this is why it was one of the first molecule that have interested people developing such a process, d'accord, engineering process to propose an alternative way to produce farnesene and specifically beta-farnesene. And you see here that now it has been achieved. It is completely used at an industrial scale with up to 150 grams by liter, which is quite very important if you imagine that you may have 1,000 liters of production by months, for example. And all have been done in Saccharomyces cerevisiae. And you will see it was quite easy, okay, to produce. It is exactly, yes. What happens, we have, discover the enzyme that is able to produce only beta-farnesene, and this enzyme is a terpene synthase named beta-farnesene synthase. I already discussed with you the importance of this synthase family. So the beta-farnesene synthase have been discovered, and it's the fermentive production using a yeast transformed by introduction only of this one enzyme have been sufficient to produce enough amount of beta-farnesene. This is also just for you, okay? Some important criterion you have to take in mind when you want on an industrial level, okay, to develop this type of strategy. High yield, productivity, concentration, okay. Some of all of these criteria need to be developed and accessed, okay, if you want to have a good production. So what happens here? You know that in fact you need to produce the precursor of farnesene, which is farnesyl diphosphate. This molecular pathway is common to every eukaryotic cell. So there is no problem for that because this occurs naturally in the yeast cell. But what happens in the yeast cell is that in fact, this precursor is not able to be transformed in beta-farnesene because naturally the yeast don't have this farnesene synthase. So the idea was quite simple at this moment. We have just to implement one enzyme in order to produce beta-farnesene. It was done and it was possible. But after, what happens is that the production of farnesene at the beginning was very, very, very low, okay, in the cell because, in fact, it is not a product normal for the cell. The cell don't need to have beta-farnesene. So it was the longest time spent for this process was to optimize the yeast strain in order to have a higher, okay, production of this farnesene, but with also a very big biomass, okay, of the cell. So you have to maintain very high growth of the cells, but also to induce a high production inside the cell of your own metabolite here, beta-farnesene. And what they have also developed, which is very interesting, instead of giving glucose directly, they have in parallel developed a very nice program that use in particular constovers, means that lignocellulosic material, and they have developed an industrial process to digest, in fact, to hydrolyze this lignocellulosic in order to liberate this glucose, okay, that is in this end product. And by this way, they produce some lignocellulosic hydrolysate that it is directly given directly to the cells, okay, to be the glucose sources, okay, of the culture. And by this way, here are the cells, okay, represented. If they gave sugar or different the different ways, they are able to produce high amount of FPP, farnesyl PP. They have also boosted several enzymes of the natural yeast cell, okay, that occur at the level of production of these intermediates, intermediates. The farnesan synthase come from Artemisia annua, because they were working also on artemisinin, and they have found some very interesting farnesan synthase inside this plant, and they have produced this system. And also, which was really interesting, you can see here, they have found some specific transporter, okay, that can be expressed on the cell membrane that permit to the beta farnesan to go outside in the cultivation medium. Means that, in fact, they have just to filter it, to take not the cell, but the filtered, okay, the filtra, to purify it after the beta farnesan. So it is quite interesting. And I find it last week, there is a nice paper that have been published some months ago, showing that in Artemisia annua, they have also found different type of farnesyl synthase, okay, that can have a specific properly activity. They catalyze specifically beta farnesan biosynthesis, okay, but you can have also different other property that can lead to different other derivative of farnesan, because beta farnesan was one of the objective. That is okay, but there is also some derivative of this molecule that could be also of very interesting importance. And in fact, they can change the gene encoding the farnesan transferase to have several other type of molecule. For example, here, this farnesan transferase could introduce a cycle in the molecule of farnesan, leading to bisalbolol, for example, that have a very interesting application in different domains. So means that the project is never finished. It's never finished, because when you have a good yeast that is able to produce enough molecule, okay, you can continue to modify the enzymes that you have introduced in it in order to emphasize, in fact, the ability of these cells to produce not only one product, but also some derivatives that could be also of big interest. But it is more quicker, because you have already a good first strain, okay, of yeast that can be only modified always at the same point, okay, in order to have different other production. Is it clear for all of you? So it is a very nice example of what was done several years ago, because it's quite more than 10 years ago that these cells have been built, and what it is now. Okay, they continue to develop several things on it. So now, production of beta farnesan is obviously done at a very high scale, at an industrial scale. So, in particular, Ameris have built a very, very big complex to produce this molecule. It is, because it is always in Brazil. And you can see here on this part, you have several tanks, okay, for a fermentation system of about 200,000 liters, okay, of production. And it is, here are the bioreactor for inoculum preparation. Okay, so needs lots of space, lots of big infrastructure. What they say is that to finalize the first strain that are able to produce beta farnesan, the investment was about $69 million for 10 years. Okay, to obtain just one strain, okay, able to produce beta farnesan. So when I say to you, oh, it's only one enzyme that have been introduced in the genome, before doing this molecular modification and having the good strain to develop the industrial process. It takes time, but it takes also a lot of money. Okay, this is why programs of this type are quite expensive. Yes, it's new. It's new. I saw different other tentative in other type of microbial or microorganisms. And it was interesting to see that some of the cyanobacteria have been also tried as host cells to be transformed to produce beta-farnesene. And the principle was exactly the same. These cells are able to produce, obviously, farnesyl pyrophosphate, but the advantage of cyanobacteria compared to yeast is that they are able to produce their own sugar, okay, by a photosynthetic process. This could be also interesting because it means that you are not obliged to feed your cell after with carbon. You have just to put some light. Right? It's another question. I know that, but how at this moment we are developing a lots of projects on microalgae that need to be under light to be efficient, means that there is also a very, very important evolution in photobioreactors. So that could be also interesting to use this system to produce not only microalgae for biofuel, but for other type of application. So this is what they have. They have transformed some cyanobacteria directly to convert CO2, okay, and water and light into beta-farnesene. Okay, the equation is quite simple in this case. So they have introduced a farnesene synthase in the genome, in the chromosome of the cyanobacteria. As it is a simple product, and also the farnesene synthase is quite a simple proteins. This protein produced in bacteria was efficient, so was able to catalyze exactly this transformation, which is not always the case. We need to test this every time, and they are able to produce some farnesene in this case. And what it is also interesting is that, in fact, farnesene synthase function with some cofactor, such as NADPH, and also the reaction can be ATP dependent. So what it is interesting in this case is that, in fact, photosynthesis could obviously give some carbon skeleton, but they can also be responsible of producing enough cofactors or energy molecule to maintain the high activity of the farnesene synthase. In the yeast, they were obliged also to boost all the system that lead to production of this cofactor and of ATP. Here, the idea will be all is done by the cell itself. We have only to include that to have a farnesene. So it was a nice project. It is only a project. Until now, it's not developed, but just to show you that they are always thinking to new solution, okay, in the same area to produce one in particular molecule. And it was quite interesting because a part of the farnesene can be volatile too. Okay, so they have find a way to trap, in fact, this volatile farnesene in a specific. It is at a lab scale. You have seen here. It's not an industrial one, but it is quite interesting. You have here your cyanobacteria light. They are producing what the farnesene, and this farnesene can be volatilized and also trapped, okay, in this system. It's not at a soluble status, okay. It can be volatilized and trapped by this way, which could be also another best way to keep, in fact, this molecule for a final application. So you can see here that it is project. It is a project that it is currently developed in the lab. For the moment, it is not transferred to industrial scale, but it is interesting to see what we can have as a different way.